Figured it was a beautiful day outside and I think I'd wear this nice outfit for today. Good morning, happy Friday, everyone. So this morning has been kind of rough for me. In fact, I really want to get this started at like 8:30, and it's just about 10:30 as I'm getting this done. I've just been all over the place today. So, my apologies for taking this long. So that's my low. I've just been really busy this morning. My high was, you know what? I actually am feeling a lot less stressed at the moment. I mean, I'm stressed about something else technically, but the other thing I'm stressed about isn't nearly as stressful as what I was stressed about before, if that makes sense. Actually, it was kind of refreshing. Then again, we have Hot Ones up. We have a Hot Ones episode to talk about, so let's get into that. What's my act of kindness? Well, actually, my act of kindness was one of the things I did today. I made sure I was very thankful and appreciative for who I was talking to in terms of getting things done. So that was it was nice. So Jesse Eisenberg on Hot Ones. Apparently he was on to promote Minions and Monsters, just like I said he was. I mean, he has another project coming out later this year, but currently the project that he's promoting is the fact that he's in Minions and Monsters. And that was the first question that Sean asked was, did he do any research upon doing Minions and Monsters? And when Sean says research, what he means is the differences between old and new Hollywood. See, a lot of people wouldn't know this unless you actively looked it up yourself. But once upon a time, when people made movies, there was no sound in them. There were silent films. You literally went to a movie theater to see a movie, yes, but not only was it in black and white, there was no sound. You had to see and take a gander whatever was watching and interpret it in your own way. Those were silent films back then. And I mean, we tend not to think about that stuff now because we have movies in color and good Lord, do we have movies in sound. But just doing research on that, and Jesse Eisenberg mentioned how it was a huge transition going from silent films to films with sound in them. I mean, believe it or not, actually, there's a really good movie called The Artist that talks about this story better. But a lot of people who worked in silent films weren't able to become actors in sound films because it actually was a completely different medium altogether almost. A lot of people actually lost jobs from it. It's just something really interesting, and I mean, I highly recommend you check out The Artist. It's a great movie. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't seen it, but I know what it's about. So actually, speaking of research, they talked about studying anthropology because that's what Jesse Eisenberg, studied when he was in college. And anthropology, if you don't know what it is, basically it's the study of different cultures. And the idea of, for example, I wear these clothes, shirt, shorts on a nice hot day. That's what people here in America would do, versus people in a different country at this time of year would be wearing different clothes. Everyone's culture is different, but different is never necessarily a bad thing. In fact, if anything, it makes every culture in its own way valid. Seriously, I actually took an anthropology class in college, and it was actually quite informative. So yeah, shout out to all the anthropology majors out there. Okay, so some of these wings, Sean didn't really ask a question. It was just, Sean Evans and Jesse Eisenberg shooting skeet. And this was one of them where Jesse Eisenberg talks about how he used ChatGPT to prepare for the episode, which I don't want to get into, what ChatGPT took. Here's the thing. I never use ChatGPT. I'm very much trying not to use any of the AI stuff. I don't want to use AI if I can avoid it. I mean, listen, I understand that for some people, AI and ChatGPT and all that stuff, I understand that for some people it is a good thing. I believe that those people believe it's a good thing. I'm just not one of those people. So, bear with me on this. So, they talked about the one scene that he dreaded doing most was when he did The Social Network. He had this memorized an entire paragraph where he was talking all technical lingo, which seriously, it was so bad he couldn't even take a shower. That's insane. Also, they talked about the 99 takes for the opening breakup, which, good Lord, I need to see that. I need to see The Social Network again. I haven't seen it in years. It's a good movie, though. Very good movie. They talked about any quote-unquote, is this really happening moments, the out-of-body sensations and intrusive thoughts when, you're on stage or, in a production or in a project or whatever. They actually talked about the movie that he's currently directing now, and it's about, it has to involve a community theater. And they talked about the juxtaposition of diving into the actor's process. And, I mean, listen, there's community theaters all over the country. And for all intents and purposes, I'm absolutely positive that there are people out there who are good actors that, otherwise wouldn't get recognized unless, because unfortunately, it's not still you're a great actor and all of a sudden you're famous. You actually have to go to places New York or Los Angeles, New York City, or Los Angeles, or Chicago, or any of the major, cities that, you'd be able to find stuff like this. Due to big cities like that would have that kind of availability. And some cities are better about that than others, too. But every actor, no matter what level they're at, has a process. And that process needs to be taken seriously. Full stop. To this very day, I still remember my warm-up exercises for back when I was, in school theaters, and I would definitely use, if I ever became an actor for a stage or anything like that, or if I ever did stand-up, I would definitely use some of those warm-up exercises for this. Absolutely, I would. He talked about the fact that he's a Pacers fan, even though he lives in New York City, which I actually did kind of like his response to that, because, I mean, listen, New York City is New York City. There are so many superlatives about New York City that I could make a video about as many superlatives as I know, and I still wouldn't have even scratched the surface. Including the fact that, it's the city with a whole bunch of, sports teams. And it does. You got, the New York Rangers for hockey. You have, the New York Giants for football. The New York Jets, even though technically they're in Jersey. Actually, the stadium's in East Rutherford, Jersey. The New York Yankees, the New York Mets, the New York Knicks, the Brooklyn Nets, actually, I think is another team. So, a lot of teams in New York City. So, to Jesse Eisenberg, it just makes sense, rather than root for the city with, a million sports teams, with, arguably more chances for that city to experience a championship more than anyone. You know, root for a team that comes from, a city or a state that isn't as well known, that isn't talked about as much, that, you wouldn't really, that's off the beaten path. That's actually kind of smart, believe it or not. And you know what? In a way, it kind of feels like, because full disclosure, when I was a kid, I became a Dallas Cowboys fan through my dad. But when I was a kid for a while, I really didn't know like what team to root for. I mean, honestly, I was really annoyed at how my dad was bragging about the Cowboys. So I liked Green Bay because I liked the color green. That was a thing. But it's kind of like that where, like, it's okay to have opinions where you think slightly higher, where you think more of one thing over the other. That's all it is. It's not good or bad. It's just, it's what it is. Then we got to the bomb, and literally all they did was just like review the bomb. That's all they did. In fact, honestly, the remainder of the episode was pretty much, the sauces in the lineup. Like Jesse Eisenberg asked, like these Hot Ones sauces, are they like yours? And Sean's like, yeah, they are. Oh, and Jesse's like, how come all these sauces aren't yours? And I mean, that actually is something I used to ponder myself, because listen, there have been enough hot sauces made out there where theoretically, you could make an entire hot sauce lineup just composed entirely of Hot Ones brand hot sauces, like the OG Fire Chipotle, the several iterations of Los Calientes, either barbecue, barbacoa, verde, or rojo, the pickle garlic sriracha, Tropical Amarillo, the Last Dab. You have a whole bunch of iterations of the Last Dab. So yeah, you have like enough hot sauces where you could easily make a hot sauce lineup comprised entirely of, hot sauces. But the way they do it over First Week Feast is like there's different hot sauces on there because, there's hot sauce makers not just all over the country, all over the world. And the good folks over First Week Feast and Hot Ones use this as an opportunity to say, listen, there's a whole bunch of hot sauces out there. Why do we have to just focus on just the stuff we make? Let's have other people who make hot sauces have their time in the spotlight. And they do. Not that I would actually know the individual sales of like any given hot sauce, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if like there was a company that made a hot sauce that had a hot sauce featured on Hot Ones, and after which their sales like skyrocketed. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm sure it's happened. And for the last question, Sean asked, given how Jesse Eisenberg has struggled with anxiety, and he's very open about that. And seriously, Jesse Eisenberg is a really cool dude. He is. If you couldn't tell, this episode was great. Of course it was. Sean even said like 9 times out of 10 the experience is, incredible. And that's actually lowballing it, But, given the fact that Jesse Eisenberg has talked about his struggles with anxiety, as well as, what he's going through and stuff like that, Sean asked him, is he worried about anything? And Jesse Eisenberg very calmly said, he's not. This was an experience that he said he was looking forward to. This is an experience that he wanted to do. And for better or for worse, he got it. That's actually something we could all learn from. Because listen, we all, have things coming our way that we know for a fact are going to happen. And obviously, when you're not looking forward to them, it stinks. No one wants to see that. No one wants to hear that. However, you also have times where you know, there are things coming your way that you are looking forward to, and sometimes, and this does happen, it's happened to me before, where I very much looked forward to it, and I got what I wanted, but something about it wasn't entirely satisfying. And yeah, that totally happens. You know, if it does, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, when I was younger and if that happened, of course, you know, I was annoyed and said, oh, I don't want to do it again. But now I'm at that age of my life where if it does happen like that, I try not to complain so much because, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what I asked for. This is the experience that, you know, I wanted and technically was hoping for. If for whatever reason I'm not satisfied with what I see, you know, that's, you know, tough cookies. You know, that's what I wanted, and, you know, that's what I wound up getting. Simple as that. So yes, for all intents and purposes, this was a very good episode of Hot Ones. No complaints here. It was a great episode, and shout out to Jesse Eisenberg. Good luck with Minions and Monsters, which is coming out in a few weeks. I have no intention of seeing it, but, I mean, listen, it's the Minions. Everyone loves the Minions. It's going to do gangbusters at the box office. I'm sure it will. And you know what? Shedding a little light of the transition from old school Hollywood silent films to, you know, new school Hollywood silent films, you know, that's cool. It totally is. I personally can't wait to see what Jesse Eisenberg has next. I mean, he's going to be Saint Walker in the Batman Part 2 coming out next year. Looking forward to that. Blue Lantern. It's going to be cool. So yeah, great episode. Shout out to Jesse Eisenberg for getting through the hot sauce lineup. Hope you all like this video. If you like, start YouTube channel, follow me on social media. As always, I'm very homie. This video for all you guys who watch Joe Fernando. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Friday. And remember, if you guys want to talk, change your heel, and always back. Take care and make good choices. 607 all day, baby.